When I got back online making videos again 10 days ago, I made the statement that I was going to avoid politics, that I did not want to make rage videos about political stuff, specifically Donald Trump and his administration. I want to talk about something a little bit different, though, today. It's in the political sphere, although this shouldn't be political. When we went in as a nation, and it doesn't matter whether or not I believe in what President Trump does, it doesn't matter whether or not I voted for him, it doesn't matter whether or not I agree with his policies. Regardless of any of that domestic view of the president of the United States, when he or she someday maybe orders our military to enter another country, specifically in this case, Venezuela, kidnaps, arrests their president, extricates them from their country, brings them to the United States to stand trial. Then, in addition to that, seizes oil. Then, in addition to that, makes a public statement on national news saying that he is going to order shipments, barrels and barrels of their oil shipped to the United States for our profit. That should give everybody pause. That should no longer be a political thing. And here's why. Because I don't want this to just be a I hate Trump thing or whatever. And I certainly don't want, comment any way you got. Engagement's great. But I really don't want to hear the blah, 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 Obama this, Biden that. Like, I'm not looking to get into that. I don't care about any of that. The reality is, I was raised in a country in which I was taught about the multiple times in history in which the United States engaged in the defense of nations who were being imperialistic against others. We look as recently as Iraq going into Kuwait, but also the wars in Bosnia, the Korean War, World War II, World War I, between Japan and Germany in World War II. Italy was involved as well, but then World War I with Germany. We built this nation. We built this nation on the idea of a revolution against an imperialistic nation that was not giving us representation. This country was founded on these principles that tyranny is not appropriate, that imperialism is not appropriate. Now, we can talk about the history of U.S. government actions overseas and what we do with nations when we topple them. For example, going back to when, Bush went into Iraq. And plenty of people were talking about whether or not that was a justified war because the impetus for the war was the bombing on September 11th. And that supposedly they had weapons of mass destruction. And thus, even though a Saudi national, with ties to Afghanistan, was really the cause of September 11th. Let's go into Iraq and take care of Saddam Hussein, because. And as it turns out, it was the thinly veiled secret is that we were there for oil. We were there for oil, and we were there because President Bush Jr. wanted to settle a score that his father had with Saddam Hussein that was never satisfied, right? Though that was the impetus for war. So now we have Donald Trump under a guise of narco-terrorism saying that essentially the president of Venezuela, while I agree, was illegally in power, right? That's the consensus amongst the world, was illegally in power. The impetus is that he was authorizing or somehow involved with the sending of drugs to the United States. This does not give us the reason, or the justification, or the legal authority to enter another country and do what we did. And then to say that we're going to seize their oil and like it or else. And we're still going to go after their tankers. Oh, and those tankers are flying Russian flags. So then in the wake of that, because this obviously happened days ago, now in the wake of that, we have Marco Rubio, rattling his sabers, hawkishly saying that Cuba's next. And now they're talking about Greenland, which is by the way, a territory of Denmark and part of the European Union. And so now you have Danish officials essentially saying that a move on Greenland by the United States would be an act of war. How did we get here? I understand. So difference in politics, right? What is the difference between politics and whatever it is that this is, right? I believe that a woman has a right to an abortion. I believe that that religion should not be taught in schools. I believe that THC should be legal for consumption and purchase. I believe, I believe that we all should have universal health care. I believe that we should have free education, right? You can disagree with those things. That's politics. That's policy. But if we've gotten to a point where we don't agree that the United States is not an imperialistic nation, that we don't just enter other countries unilaterally without consent of our own Congress or our European allies or our South American allies, and simply remove their president from power, put him on trial, and take their oil, I don't understand that. How did we get here to where anybody is defending that? Now, for the record, not enough people are defending it because we're seeing mass defections in Congress. Instead of speaking out against Trump and being primaried by the MAGA Republicans in the upcoming, congressional elections in the midterms, they're just leaving. People are retiring. And then we get this. This is disgusting. Now, you may have your thoughts on this. Now, whenever there's a shooting, a police shooting, the question always comes up, and we're going to watch this real quick. Actually, let me watch this first. I will warn you, please. This is very traumatizing video, and if you don't want to watch it, fast forward or stop watching the video. I'm not, however, playing the audio because it's quite graphic. But this woman, most admittedly, I mean, it's pretty clear that she was trying to block ICE officials from coming down the street for whatever reason. She was taking a stance, right or wrong. But then they try to enter her door as she's pulling away. The other officer shoots. And I'm going to rewind this again because this is important. This other officer is standing in front of her vehicle, then pulls his weapon and shoots. So the argument is being made that she was using her vehicle as a weapon, and that the officer in front of the vehicle was operating in self-defense. I'm not a police scholar. I'm not a legal authority. I'm not a lawyer. I have a lot of friends that are cops. I haven't spoken with any of them before making this video. But the one thing that I do know is that these ICE officials do not show their faces. They do not wear identification. They are not trained as law enforcement. They, at most, have some weekend trainings. There is a clear indication that many, and I'm not saying that these men were, we don't even know who these men are right now, but many members of ICE that are being offered $100,000 $100,000 salaries, huge sign-on bonuses, reversals of their student loans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of them, many of them, have shown whether it's white nationalist beliefs or straight up Nazi beliefs. There's video actually floating around. Again, I'm not going to show it, but there's video floating around right now of an ICE agent that was caught in Minneapolis yesterday or today with an SS right here on the back of his neck, right behind his ear. And he was confronted over it. These are the people that are supposedly representing the United States government in immigration enforcement. And I'm not even going to get into the laundry list of illegalities in the approach that ICE has taken to finding and removing people that are here supposedly illegally. But this is now the ninth ICE-involved shooting. And this was the blatant murder of a U.S. citizen. She's a 37-year-old woman. Her name is Renee Good, I believe. And she was there. I don't want to say she was doing the right or the wrong thing. That is for everybody else to decide. I'm not going to weigh in on that. The fact is she was clearly trying to block traffic. But as soon as that ICE agent approached her, she tried to get away. They grabbed her door handle. Her door was locked, as most cars when they're in gear. And I don't know what possessed that other official to get in front of her vehicle, unless he wanted to make himself a target. But she clearly was trying to turn really hard to the right to avoid him. He shot her once directly at her face and then 2 more times as she pulled away. In my opinion, that's murder. Now, all of the police experts on social media, I'm sure, are going to find this video and have comments below. Again, please let me know your thoughts on it, because I appreciate the engagement. But the fact of the matter is, this shouldn't be happening. And what's worse now is we have Tim Walz, on the heels of losing his run as vice president with Kamala Harris, making some pretty bold statements. He's calling for calm, but he's also possibly calling up the National Guard if ICE doesn't leave his state. And I've been worried that for some time that the possibility of civil war was going to happen when blue state National Guards end up coming up against federalized agents or red state National Guard. I would like, regardless of your party affiliation, regardless of your original view or religious views, pardon me, regardless of your heritage, regardless of what you think about immigration, I would like you to think about whether or not these actions in Venezuela, possibly in Greenland and Cuba, and this shooting today in Minneapolis, I want you to think really hard if these things reflect the views that you have about what the United States is and should be. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me wherever you find me on social media, and my name is Christopher Hess. Thanks for watching, and I really hope we can do better.